Welcome to One Shot Presents. This is a quick shot. I'm Brick.
And I'm Tiger. And we're on the set of a lovely massage video, which we're about ready to start rolling.
That's right. In case you guys don't know, for our day job, we're videographers. We do instructional videos for the massage industry. But this week, I'm reviewing Scarlet by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev.
And I'm going to give you a preview of Strange Science Fantasy by Scott Morse. It's coming out from IDW.
That's cool. Anyway, last month, 2 months ago, we reviewed, what was that thing that Marvel did?
Siege.
Siege, yeah. Brian let me down. I didn't like the comic that much, but Scarlet, it's a lot of fun. It's like watching TV on paper. I mean, it was really fun, the way that they did the panels. Alex Maleev's art is awesome. Scarlet is a really interesting character. The story is a little bit like, well, you know, it's something that you've seen before, but at the same time, because of the art, because of Bendis' words, it does add a little twist to it, and I'm really intrigued, and I can't wait for issue 2.
For my comic, Scott Morse did both the art and the story, and I have to say that I am a much bigger fan of the art than the story. That being said, though, the story is compelling enough that I do want to pick up issue 2. Much like Metaphor, which we reviewed, I think, a couple episodes ago, it's pretty confusing, and I don't really know what's going on. But the layouts, the colors, everything's pretty simple and pretty cool. And so it's really a pleasure to look at and read. So I'm pretty excited to find out where this is going to go.
Like I said, Scarlet, if you guys haven't read Brian Michael Bendis, you ought to do yourself a treat and go pick up this comic book. His icon stuff is always fun. I can't wait for issue 2. Out of 5, I'm going to give it a 4.
I'm also going to give mine a 4. Look for it soon.
Good job, sir.
Hey, no.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
No, you did a hell of a job.
I know I did.
That's good.
It sounds like bragging if I say it.
That's true. I'm waiting for beer. It's closed. It doesn't open till noon. Anyway, during the Utah Arts Festival, we had the pleasure of talking to Scott Allie from Dark Horse.
All right, we're here with Scott Allie. Scott, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
So now tell me a little bit about what your job at Dark Horse is. Like, what is it that you do? Like, run us through your typical day.
My typical day is running around. Like, I make a list of things I want to get done during the day, and then I get none of it done and just put out fires all day long. I usually spend like an hour a day on the phone with Mike Mignola, the guy who created Hellboy, and that's kind of the only real regular part of the day. Is it's somewhere in there I get to do that, and the rest of the day it's just running around putting out fires and then taking work home for the like more long-term planning sort of stuff.
Right on. So you told me that Solomon Kane just wrapped up. You're gonna have the trade coming out, but going back a little bit, tell me a little bit about this Devil's Footprint. You know, the Ep.6. I think that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, Devil's Footprints was my first creator-owned thing, my first graphic novel that I did. I wrote it quite a while ago. It was an idea that I had to set a horror story in my hometown, and the initial idea was to tell the story about this older guy returning to his hometown where he's done a lot of bad stuff. And the more I worked on that, the more I thought I needed to tell his early days and that bad stuff that made him have to leave his hometown. So I set it in my own hometown of Ipswich, Massachusetts, which is a town with like witchcraft history and just great colonial history, great colonial architecture and stuff. And I missed my hometown. I'd moved away like 10 years earlier and wanted to re-experience it. And I got to do that in the comic.
No, it sounds like, I think because I was reading on your website, like it seems like you infuse not just stuff from your hometown, but like actual events from your own life into it too. Like how much of that played into that story?
Yeah, well, a lot of it was based on my personal life, but not the monsters. Like the monsters, the demons and stuff was like allegory for that. But the idea of feeling like you're cast out of your hometown and that you're always going to be looking back on this place that you come from that you really identify with, but don't feel totally connected to. That's very much, from my life, and the relationship that we see and that we see fall apart for Brandon in Devil's Footprints is, semi-autobiographical, filtered heavily, and I probably combined a couple of my high school girlfriends into Brandon's girlfriend. You know how that goes. But any of the stories that I write feel a little autobiographical because I want to see real human things happen to these guys rather than just fighting monsters and running around breaking things. And the human stuff that happens to them comes from my own experiences, like Exerbia. That one's very autobiographical, even though I don't have a best friend who's a talking rat.
Well, that's kind of my second question. I mean, like, when you infuse things from your own life, is it easier when you do something like Solomon Kane, where it's like, well, no one's going to know this is my own personal story? Or does it just kind of, because when it's your own story, do you ever wonder, like, are people going to know this is me, or do you even care about that? Like,
Yeah, I don't really care. I think for a while you care about that, and then at some point you get to where you don't care because you've done it enough, or you've worried about it enough, and then you realize it doesn't really matter. And you realize too that, like, by the time it gets through the filter of you writing it and somebody drawing it and it's coming out, the parts that other people are going to recognize as your own life, half the time they're going to be wrong and they're going to miss the real stuff. So, I gave Devil's Footprints to a girl from back east and asked her to read it, and either she just didn't mention it or she didn't notice that so much of it had to do with her. But it's all twisted through your own perception and your own memory. So maybe it's not really based on her. Maybe it's just based on some weird idea I carried around.
well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks for joining.
We want to remind you guys that we're going to be in San Diego for the Comic-Con coming up here, and we're going to have an episode every day for all 5 days that we're down there. So you're going to have to look forward to those.
Yep. Hopefully we'll have some cool interviews. We'll definitely be reviewing some new stuff that's coming out from the con. We'll be reviewing toys. We'll just be having a good time. So yeah, hopefully you guys will see us.
Those will be available on Comcast On Demand, OneShotPresents.com, Night-Flight.com, ComicsNexus.com, and BigShinyRobot.com. I think that's all of them.
I think that's all of them too. But if we miss one, we apologize. However, we do want to give thanks to our sponsors, Night Flight Comics, the greatest sponsors in the world. And yeah, we'll see you guys at the Comic-Con. We hear that Superman has taken a stroll across the nation. We also hear that he's a great thumb wrestler, but we have our own champion, the Utah Jazz Bear. Superman, why don't you stop by Salt Lake City and get your butt handed to you?